Has it been a hoax all along? What do you think these videos all have in common? See if you can catch the connection. The JFK files were finally released. This 60,000 page document was released to the public, and the race to find the damning information was on. The files were full of random junk and even disproved sources, but it wasn't long until the interesting facts started to get weeded out. We explored the story of Gary Underhill, a man who was connected to the CIA who was mysteriously deleted after alleging that the CIA was involved. And the shocker of that was the way he was self-deleted, with the rear left side gunshot wound behind his ear, even though he was right-handed. The very day after I covered this video, there was some alleged groundbreaking news that broke with research regarding the pyramids. A radar scan combined with AI revealed that there was these 600-meter column-like shapes beneath the pyramids. Speculation started to circulate. Was this proof that the pyramids were hosting some sort of underground power plant or underground city? Was this proof that a prior civilization with more advanced technology existed on this earth? Interestingly enough, our friend Metatron just did a video reacting to the Italian research committee that discovered this information. The truth about their finds is kind of revealing.
For those who don't know, pareidolia is the perception of apparently significant patterns or recognizable images, especially faces, in a random or accidental arrangements of shapes and lines. So, this is the part where he's trying to justify his findings by saying, you might think that this is just me trying to add these shapes, because remember, he's saying there are spirals underneath, and he's saying, but maybe that's just something I see. So he's seeing this because he wants to see something, but in reality, it's not that. Maybe it's something else. He says, open quotes, "You see that, but I don't see anything. Does artificial intelligence make stuff up? Question. The AI does not have the phenomenon of pareidolia, and it does not make things up. So can the AI identify shapes that are fake? Question. No, because pareidolia is a psychoanalytical phenomenon. The AI never gets anything wrong," is what this man stated 3 times during this conference.
It seems that the research speculation about the pyramid columns underneath is pretty flawed and questionable, to say the least. So if it wasn't a definitive find, why did this topic generate mass intrigue all around the world? Are you seeing the connection yet? Well, in my latest video, we actually dove into the CIA's connection to the spiritual realm and how it ties to their search for the Ark of the Covenant. Now, the Ark of the Covenant is an ancient, powerful relic documented in the Bible that says to have the tablets from Moses and the presence of God inside. It also has a piece of manna from heaven. And for those reasons, the Ark of the Covenant has great power. And as we saw in Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, devious minds have a lot of incentive for acquiring said power. Is that what the CIA is truly after? We've seen from their very own documents on their very own website that they use something called the gateway process, where they used mediums and psychics to access the spiritual realm in an attempt to gain specific secret information. But are these experiments just fantasies, or are they uncovering something that the God of the Bible clearly told his people to stay away from? Now, what do all these videos have in common that reveals something very shocking about every single person watching this video right now? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into on this video. But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. And sometimes that includes us taking a look at topics that have captured the internet by storm, including topics like this. So if you're new here, or if you're not new here, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, as a huge percentage of the people that watch this channel, unfortunately, are not subscribed. All right, let's jump into this video. So one of the patterns I see in our last 6 uploads is the human desire to try and figure out and solve mystery. And sometimes we want to solve mysteries that we have no business getting involved with, as we see with some of the CIA videos and the JFK files. So some of you guys know this about me. I grew up in San Diego in the late 90s, and it was an interesting time for me as a kid to be exposed to hip-hop music, specifically West Coast gangster rap. Now, some of you may be thinking, what were your parents thinking letting you listen to gangster rap in the mid-90s? Well, that's just it. My dad wasn't in my life, and my mom worked nights, and so I had a lot of time. This made me a super fan of a rapper named Tupac. I was such a super fan of Tupac that after he died, I was in 7th grade, and I actually dressed up as Tupac for Halloween. No, I did not wear the blackface. Shout out Justin Trudeau. But after he died, I did take it really, really badly. I was a huge fan. His music spoke to me. It was actually his music that took me from being an atheist who was hurt by the church and mad at God to becoming, I guess, more of a deist/theist. So when Tupac passed in September of 1996, I couldn't reconcile someone so influential, so charismatic, so powerful dying in a street skirmish in Las Vegas. And oddly enough, this is right when the internet was really starting to take off. And so me, as a 12-year-old kid, I started going down to my local library in Kensington, San Diego. I lived in Normal Heights, and I would go down there and I would get on the internet, and I spent my formidable years learning about why Tupac really died. The 7-day Illuminati theory, the possibility that his label executive Suge Knight set him up, his mom's background as a Black Panther, and the CIA or FBI being involved. And recently, someone was charged with the crime. A guy named Keefe D, and the other 3 people that were in the car have all passed away. So from a young age, I had this desire to try and solve mysteries, things that didn't make sense in the moment. And so I spent countless hours attempting to solve this riddle. This occupied so much of my headspace, even much of my identity in terms of being the one in the know about the real facts of the situation. It took me down the rabbit hole of assuming that anyone who was in power was either in on it with the Illuminati or was themselves a member of the Illuminati. It created a paradigm that made me believe that anything big was bad. And this led me to be really into aliens. And then the 9/11 conspiracy. And then I started looking at everything, not through a skeptical lens, but through a hyper-cynical lens. Some of this got reconciled as I came to faith in Jesus towards the end of high school. But considering the lack of trust in institutions, we're starting to see this same mindset spread all across culture. And this is where it starts to get revealing. If seeking out answers for mysteries seems to lead to destruction, or at the least a poor use of time in some cases, why can't we stop? Why can't we stop ourselves from needing to know the answer to the mystery? Well, one of the reasons is baked into human psychology. Check out this clip from Joe Rogan and Andrew Huberman on pattern recognition.
But it's also pattern recognition. You've been doing it so many times, and really good fighters, one of the things that you see is they don't just charge out in the first round. The first round is like a feeling out process. So you're downloading a lot of data points. You're downloading foot movement, and a lot of guys watch tape and they download it from that, but then you don't really know until you're in there with the person. So they're downloading positions, they're downloading what a guy does. Like if you pivot to the left, does he move forward? Does he move back? Does he throw the left hook? Does he throw the right hand? What does he do? And how good is he at closing distance? Does he try to fire from where he's at, or does he skip forward and fire? Does he give any telltale signs? Does he telegraph? So there's a lot of things that a fighter looks for. Mayweather had some of the best counterpunchers in the history of the sport. He was so good at like staying in the pocket. So he was an elusive guy.
Or is he slipping?
Pattern recognition. So he knows that left hook is coming. And so look how straight he throws that right hand. See how straight he threw that? So Canelo is throwing these big wide punches, and Floyd is just cutting him off at the path and then moving his head out of the line of those hooks that come his way.
So follow me for a second. Joe Rogan is talking about the human mind's ability for pattern recognition, specifically in the context of fighting, which is human survival, but we've kind of evolved it to entertainment form. And the human mind is so powerful that over enough time, it could be trained to spot patterns the way we see Floyd Mayweather slip punches within millimeters. Without the need to process the information, without the need for exquisite strategy, he is slipping these punches instinctively. And in this case, it's saving him from getting knocked out. It's saving him from destruction, likely saving him from CTE, even though many people would say that Floyd Mayweather was kind of a boring fighter. You see, from a psychology standpoint, the human mind has been conditioned to see patterns. It's been conditioned to see patterns that may cause us harm. But you see now, in 2025 and beyond, we live as kings. Let me explain. If you consider the fact that many people, especially in the West, have things like access to healthcare, regardless on how good or bad, if you consider that we have access to things like running water, food, shelter, clothes, convenience, the ability to order something on Amazon today and it arrive tomorrow, the ability to grab an app, hit a button and have food delivered to us, these are things that not even kings from 100 years ago had access to. And so this is a chart explaining Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you look at the very bottom, you see the physiological needs, our needs for air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction. Above that, you see safety needs, personal security, employment, resources, health, property. Above that, you see love and belonging, friendships, intimacy, family, sense of connection. Above that is esteem, which is respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, freedom. And at the peak of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you see the desire to become the most that one can be. So if you think about it, the vast majority of folks who are watching YouTube on a $1,000 device are generally above these first two levels. Now, I know many of us have faced tragedy and all sorts of dire circumstances, but generally speaking, you probably have air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, those sorts of things. In the next tier up, you probably feel generally secure. It's not like you're living in a developing country or you're living in parts of the Middle East. And you probably have employment and you're probably healthy, right? So generally, I think most people are in these first two layers having those basic needs met. And even if you've moved up the hierarchy of needs, there's probably still some searching of an enemy or a pattern of threats. And this is where the pattern recognition comes in. When you factor in especially everything post-COVID, the craziness that happened with the breakdown of institutions that people trusted, we see patterns and threats to us based on things that just don't seem like they're consistent. So seeing these patterns lead us to want to solve problems. Leading us to solve problems ultimately leads to a dopamine spike, meaning that solving problems triggers a release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward, leading to a feeling of satisfaction and motivation, meaning when you feel like you figured out something that's a mystery, you feel satisfied. This dopamine surges reinforces problem-solving behaviors and contributes to a sense of accomplishment. This is what sent me down the rabbit hole. After I figured out who really killed Tupac, I then had to solve other mysteries like 9/11 and so on and so forth. So why do people enjoy trying to solve these things? Well, in the scriptures, it kind of gives us a clue. Check out what Ecclesiastes chapter 3 says. Verse 9 is talking about what workers gain from their toil. Verse 10 says, I've seen the burden God has laid on a human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet, no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. So this idea of God setting eternity in the human heart, many scholars would say that this is a yearning we all have to know him, because ultimately God is outside of space and time. But when people don't know God and they aren't searching for him, I believe they could take these desires to solve mysteries and figure out what's at the bottom of certain things in place of knowing the mystery of God. So while these mysteries may be harmless and they're interesting to me as well, I think when we engage with these topics and it's void of any biblical truth, it's void of anything related to the gospel, the God of the universe coming in flesh to live the life we couldn't live, die the death we should have died on the cross in our place for our sins. That is the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. The pursuit of these topics can become idols in and of themselves. A distraction or a filling of a hole in your heart to seek for eternity, to get answers that could only truly be filled with an encounter with the living God. And ultimately, that's why I make these videos. I know that we as people are intrigued by these different types of topics. I also know the detrimental nature of how it can lead to a sense of fatalism and nihilism, where we feel so out of control of the things that we can control that we throw it up and bury our head and don't do the things that God has placed right in front of us to do. So it's okay to enjoy the mysteries. It's okay to enjoy the storytelling, the intrigue, but don't allow those to replace the main thing. And the main thing for all of us is to know God and make him known. And by make him known, I mean walking in the fullness of what he has for us on this side of eternity. To not just place our faith in Jesus, get our hell insurance and check out, but to actually walk in his ways, to live a life that blesses God. And this is exactly what we explore in my 60-day devotional journal, where we walk people through the entire narrative of the scriptures in 60 entries, 35 days in the Old Testament, covering some of the stories that we talk about on this channel, and 25 days in the New Testament, custom journal prompts, a section for your prayer requests. These are on sale right now at blessgod.shop. stop if you want to go deeper and what it looks like to occupy on this side of eternity. And I believe this is the real antidote to help deprogram ourselves to some of the brainwashing that's going on in society today. If you want to see a playlist of videos where we go deeper on that topic, click over here. All right? I'll see you over there. Peace.